Have a very fetching photo of myself with a very surprised face when the polls, exit polls came out, which actually probably to the best, because my jaw literally dropped and I looked like a idiot basically for about 5 seconds. But maybe on the telly you control, or maybe that's why they've given you the information earlier so you don't do this. I literally said like, and everybody in the studio and in the production box also did that. So this was quite a moment to treasure, but hardly recorded. So I actually got a call from the Radio 5 Live to cover the election for them really late. And this is because they realized that ITV had Jane, Sky had two fantastic female professors from London, and BBC was all male. So they were like, we want a female cephalogist. And I was like, well, I guess I am a female cephalogist. However, I do have a strong research interest in ethnic minority vote. So I kind of went in there thinking, I know enough about elections generally to talk about it on the night to non-statistical audience. But really, I had my own agenda. I wanted to see what happens with minorities. And actually, for me, one of the most rewarding experiences of the night was that system that Rob just mentioned. So it's actually not a Windows interface. It's on your... what's it called? The program that you use, normal people use internet for. Explorer, yeah, sorry, I use Chrome, so I forget. So it's on the Explorer, it's a tab, and it feeds all the information. And the amazing thing about it is that it does give us the kind of research interesting things. So, of course, the media isn't really interested in, you know, how the working class people vote or how minorities vote. On the night, they really want to know who's going to form the next government. And particularly that night, the main thing that I got asked over and over and over was, is the exit poll right? And the more Lib Dems popped up here and there saying they'll eat their hats, the more I was asked this question. And so literally I must have answered the same question about 6 times in 6 different ways. But thankfully, Rob, because this was my first time on a big kind of media coverage like this, so I asked his advice and I said, so what do you think, you know, should be my main line? And he said to me, whatever you do not say that the exit poll is wrong. So armed with this information, I was presenting the happy face to the radio station. But I actually read up upon this anyway, and I did actually find that the piece of information that they find the most exciting, and they actually asked me to repeat it a few times, is that because it's a statistical prediction model, if it's off by 20 seats, it's still right, actually, when you think about it, because of the margins of error that we know exist. But of course, on a night like this, 20 seats off, I mean, this could have been a completely different government, and I think they find it funny. They thought, haha, female cephalogists, or in general, cephalogists, let them, you know, tell the British public that 20 seats off is the polls were right and the models were right. And they had a little giggle. So, as I said, the highlight of the night for me came when I looked at the Curtis little system and I saw that the areas with high concentration of ethnic minorities, which is what I was really interested in, have voted for Labour a lot more than the rest of the nation. So as we know, a lot of the places that we didn't think would go Conservatives did. As the first 2 results came in, I was trying to say something, but they were not interested. They only wanted to know if the poll's right. I was trying to get in the message that Labour has not done well, that UKIP is clearly hurting Labour a lot more than it's hurting Conservatives, judging by these first few results. But really, the messages of any kind of subtlety and nuance were lost, right? Because it was such a big result, all they wanted to know is, how did the politicians react? You know, what's the big story? Do they believe the polls? Do they not believe the polls? So really the kind of fine-grained and fine-tuned analysis, I think, which Jane was able to do maybe later on in the night, I was completely excluded from. So I just kept the nuggets of information in my head, and I did actually find the next morning they did come in handy. Because of my known interest in the area of ethnic minorities, I did get a lot of phone calls first thing in the morning saying, can you come on BBC Asian networks? Can you come on this, you know, tell us how did minorities vote? What happened? And there was this clear story, which I already got on the night, that there's a clear and growing division in how the white people in this country have voted at this election and how the ethnic minorities have voted at this election. This has become even more exciting last week when, I don't know if you've noticed, there was a poll done by Survation which showed that minorities are now voting Conservative. It's all fine. The Conservatives closed the gap. And then you have to take a step back and thinking, back to the night, when all the seats that had more than 30% of ethnic minorities have turned Labour, and by a huge swing towards Labour, I think from 11 percentage points in the most diverse seats to 7 in the kind of medium diverse seats, how is it possible then there is a public opinion poll that says the exact opposite? Where did all the Conservative voters go? So I looked, and there were 3 seats in which the Conservatives did increase the majority, which are very diverse. So it was Croydon Central, Harrow East, and Hendon. Harrow East and Hendon are seats where the majority of the ethnic minority populations are of Hindu Indian origin. And so this is the group that the Conservatives always felt most comfortable about. They're doing well, they're very conservative, with small c conservative. And we always assumed that this is where this vote is. However, they live in other places, and Croydon Central does not have a huge population. So there is this puzzle. And I think it's an experience from the election night and the election morning, but generally speaking, it's an experience that generalizes to all media experiences that we will have, responding to stories that have just emerged with not necessarily the amount of information that you would have needed for an academic publication or a lecture to your students. You could never come out to your students and say, oh yes, 3 days ago, minorities have changed their mind and voted Conservatives, whereas you kind of have to in the media. You are asked to respond to these pieces of information, and you have to piece them together and try to make your best guess, educated guess. So my educated guess to you today is that the Salvation poll is wrong. And one of the reasons is actually similar to why the exit polls were wrong. So the online polling and a lot of the other public opinion polling is getting a certain kind of person and excludes a certain kind of person. And because of the structure of ethnic minorities in the country, quite a few of them still don't speak English, quite a few of them may be older or maybe disinterested in politics. They are not picked up as often by the election public opinion polls as the white population. And so we are excluding the population and extrapolating from a very unrepresentative sample onto population proportions. And so everybody does that. There is no better or worse pollster, but actually there are pollsters who are more aware of it. So my huge lesson for this election night also was that there are some pollsters that are a lot more conscientious. And for example, YouGov, first thing that the Salvation poll came out, YouGov contacted me and Rob and said, we also think that poll is wrong. And they have given us figures of their ethnic minority respondents. And of course, they confirmed what the Salvation poll said, which is that a lot more of them voted Conservative at the last election. But what they had, what Salvation did not have, is change. And this is a principle that lies behind the exit poll as well. You look at the constituencies which you looked at the last election and look how they changed. And this is not the representativeness of them, but the change, the observation of the change is what allows you to see how did the voters behave, where was the swing and who swung where. And so the ethnic minority voters in that YouGov sample did not swing towards the Conservatives. Okay? So yes, they were more likely already to be the Conservative voters, because that's the kind of minorities that are captured, but the swing was not there. And so I think this is my kind of highlight and take on the media engagement generally around elections. Thank you.